Hey everybody, welcome to HBCU Game Day. Got a great panel here today. We're going to have a discussion on name, image, likeness, NIL. Let's introduce the guys to you today as we get ready to chop it up. Let's start with a familiar face and a familiar voice. My homeboy, Dr. KENYATTA CAVIL from inside the HBCU Sports Lab. He's down in Houston, Texas. All right, let's go to Chuck STINSON. Chuck is a partner with TLS Talent Agency, which represents HBCU Game Day and some of our television endeavors. Now, I hang out with his two knucklehead partners all the time. This is the first time I've actually got to meet Chuck in person, so we're excited about this conversation. And our final guest is Robert Fuzzy Lee. You cannot have a conversation with four black guys and somebody does not have a nickname. So moving forward, Fuzzy Lee is his name. In full disclosure, we do happen to be cousins, but he has a unique perspective that I wanted to join the conversation today. And plus, he entertained me my entire childhood. He was always that dude. So you go to the track meet, he's the fastest. You go to baseball, he's the pitcher. You go to football, he's tearing it up. And, you know, I'm just on the sidelines watching like, yeah, that's my cousin. So, look, this is a little bit of payback here. I get him involved in some of the things that we're doing here at HBCU Game Day. So, fellas, let's jump off. Chuck, I'm going to start with you, man. We'll break you into the crew here. At TLS Talent Agency, NIL, name, image, and likeness, is really important for your group because you guys are actually going to jump into representation and being on the side of student athletes here, right?
Yeah, it's part of our strategy and approach. It's something that we saw, you know, when it was first announced that it would possibly come out of the pipeline. So at TLS, we're really focusing in on helping the student athletes from a business standpoint understand their rights, what they can and can't do, and ultimately helping them capitalize on the opportunity in front of them, as opposed to leaving it solely on the schools to give them direction on what they can and can't do in that space, or how they should be, I guess, financially benefiting from the name, image, and likeness new rules out there. And as always, we've got a heavier focus on HBCUs because our thought is that really, if you take, for instance, like the guy out in Oregon, some of your bigger schools, your Power 5 conferences, they're automatically going to have opportunities come their way. But we feel like smaller institutions and HBCUs are going to have to do a little more scrapping and a little more, I guess, self-motivation to actually capitalize and take advantage of the situation.
Okay, so I wanted to bring on Fuzzy Lee here because you didn't attend an HBCU. Instead, you played at a Power 5 school. You were highly recruited out of high school, University of North Carolina, mid-90s, the ACC. Even though it was a basketball school, the football program under Mac Brown at that time was pretty high profile during that time. Give us a little bit of perspective about kind of the demands and pressures of a student athlete when you're in that environment where there's lots of exposure, lots of expectations, a lot of people have financial interest in what you do and how well you do it. And while you weren't paid directly at that time, it's almost like you were a high-profile employee, and those are some of the pressures that come along with being compensated legally for what you do in any profession. Give us a little insight on what it was when you were a player and what it was like.
Well, I mean, you know, honestly, it's the fact that, as you indicated, you were just kind of like a high-profile employee, mainly because you got the best food, the best treatment, the best equipment, the best facilities, as well as you had, you know, individuals, especially agents, that would approach you, call you, or even back then paid you to have a discussion about your future. One thing that I will say that our football program did is the fact that we had classes that Coach Mac Brown had for us to take to get a true understanding of, you know, the do's and don'ts, the right things to do, the consequences. So with that being said, you know, he kind of prepared us moving forward on what, you know, we could do and what we couldn't do, and pretty much not to pretty much put your NCAA eligibility, you know, just up for grabs if you decided to take that step across the line.
All right, Dr. KENYATTA CAVIL. Look, man, you got Shaquille O'Neal's son on campus. He's committed to play basketball there. Look, if I'm in Houston, I'm trying to put some money on that. What type of things are you seeing? Is this rapidly unfolded? Texas Southern, like any other Division I campus, has to be ready for this. What's kind of been that? Has it been a nervous energy, or what's the vibe like down in Houston with this?
Certainly, I'm gonna take it from a macro into a micro level. As Fuzzy said off the air when we were thinking about this process, in a lot of ways, this is overdue. And I think Chuck brings a perfect blueprint in terms of understanding the landscape of how this will affect HBCUs. While the Power 5 institutions, I think they will be heavily regulated. I mean, some of that will be positive in regards that they'll have access to a lot of different things. But because they have so many bigger issues that they want to control, the regulations that they're going to put around what their member institutions can do, and therefore their college athletes, does not give a lot of room for clarification. Bringing you back to the point that you made, looking at HBCU, specifically Texas Southern, our institutions are still looking in a lot of ways of how they're going to govern this structure. So there's going to be a lot more opportunity that you see potentially with Shaquille O'Neal's son, as you said, at Texas Southern University, and what Texas Southern is looking at, partnering with a company that will allow our athletes, if you would, and when I say our, Texas Southern or HBCUs from that framework, to be able to put themselves in the best position to make money literally off their name, image, and likeness. And that sounds really crazy in so many ways, that college athletes for the longest did not own their own names, image, and likeness. I'll put a pin in it right there and let you consider that. Pardon me.
So let's go back to Fuzzy here. Imagine when you were playing. You know, you guys are on TV every week, regionally, sometimes nationally. You're starting. You're on the field. Do you ever think about what your value was for what you brought to the team, with not only your effort but your name, you know, your number, like all the things that make up being an athlete on that team? Do you ever think about what you missed out on had you been in a name, image, and likeness era where you could have taken advantage of that?
Of course. One of the things that I used to love was the fact of when we would have our spring game, we would have the stadium full. We would, sign autographs, things like that. And if you think about what they're about to do now, these individuals can do, personal autograph signings, get paid for it. Jersey sales, even if they get paid for it. I was on Tecmo Bowl. I was one of the little icons. I was like, I could have got paid for that, because I was actually starting on Tecmo Bowl. I was playing then. And it's just the fact that the way that I saw it then was the first game of the year. You have everyone dressed out. The stadium is packed. The atmosphere is ridiculous. And just think about the ticket sales, the concessions sales, and just any other oddity that anyone else could purchase. In my personal perspective, everyone's scholarship was paid for that day. Everyone that was on the field, their scholarship was paid for that day. So from that point on, to me, it looked like the NCAA banked and the college banked that money moving forward for that revenue sport. Again, my personal opinion, not saying that it's correct, but there's so many different perspectives to look at it. The individuals that did not have that financial support from their family or friends, those who came there and could only go home at Christmas, or that could only go home during the summertime. Then you couldn't have a job because you were on scholarship, things like that. So that definitely would have helped out everybody, myself included. I probably, me and my rude boy compadres would have probably gotten money on the way we wore our socks to our knees all the time. Just everything, now the good part is we still have a rude boy in command, which is Dre Bly. He was part of our crew back then as well. He was actually after us, but he was there during the time frame that I was there. And Dre has carried that tradition on. Those young men that are out there playing now, they still call themselves the Rude Boys. they have T-shirts, they have everything. All that started with us. And so, of course, we don't get any money from that now, but it would have been great to have that then, because I mean, we had Rude Boys, like on our wristbands, we would take our magic markers and do everything. But the problem is that we gave it away after the game. So I actually have jerseys that I've signed and given away to kids and things like that. So yeah, that definitely would have helped back then. But I think it's truly well overdue, but it happened too fast, even though it was well overdue.
And Chuck, we talk about that speed and how quickly things are happening. Like, it's a discussion one day, it's legislation, then it's a date on the calendar, and literally when July 1st hit, Chuck, just here at HBCU Game Day, we had kids in our inbox saying, hey, I want to be an HBCU Game Day athlete, or what's happening? Do you guys have a deal that we could potentially talk about? And that's good that the opportunity is there, but this is now a business. So these student athletes not only have to worry about the business of their sport, but to be their own personal marketer. Look, even as an adult, running a business, I still learn things from day to day. I need help. I need representation. There's a lot to balance there. I know you're trying to help, but how do you educate these kids on just how big, great opportunity, but still a lot of responsibility here?
Yeah, and to your point, that's one of the things that sits foremost in our minds right now is, there is no per se set rules of the road. I mean, you think about it, each state is set to come up with their own rules and regulations for the most part. I think North Carolina, where I'm primarily based, they put on an executive order. So our biggest fear right now is where we look at things is, one, make sure these kids are protected from an eligibility standpoint, because that's paramount first, if anything else. Is that, how do we help these kids? Because from dealing with the NCAA in the past, one of our biggest fears is that, hey, we go down a road and then they circle back and say, well, that was outside the lines. And now the young man or woman's eligibility is in question. We're playing on a thin line because, one, the nature of what we do, what we could do in their minds could cause potential issues for the student athletes. So I throw that piece in there to say, all in all, there just seems to be some sort of disconnect on what the exact rules are, what the do's and don'ts are, and navigating that slowly, but not too slow where you don't miss it.
Dr. CAVIL, what do you think universities should do in terms of trying to help and assist? Are there things that you know, at least at Texas Southern, that you guys are planning or thinking about? And if you don't have to reveal that if you don't want to. But what type of assistance, if any, should universities provide student athletes navigating these waters?
The first thing I would say about any institution is, just like I would say about the NCAA, they need to get out of the way. That's the first part. When Fuzzy mentioned the fact that this is long overdue, part of the problem with it being so long overdue is they didn't want to do it. And so they kept kicking the can down the road. And so now, because life takes over and this is a capitalistic society, except for, it seems, in college athletes until most recently with the July 1st framework, where a lot of states kick things off saying, yes, maybe college athletes should have control of their name, image, and likeness. So that's the first thing I will deposit in this conversation is get out of the way. Let people have and exercise the full right that we have in this country if we're talking about the ability to truly be in the marketplace in terms of capitalization. Now, with that said, how do universities, Texas Southern to name a few, how do they go about this? First thing they need to do is they need to educate themselves. They need to understand the framework of what's out there. And so understand the framework of your state laws. What does your legislation say? Hire a lawyer. You have general counsel at your institution. Read the legislative bylaws that goes on. You already have compliance people that are reading the NCAA laws. Sit down, discuss what this means, and find out what are the general parameters. The next thing is hire experts. Go to Chuck, hire his company, hire the experts that are going to manage this. Make sure you go through the process and evaluate them, that they can understand everything they need to do, and then make the move forward with the process. some people are ahead of this. You see this going on with Tennessee State. You see this going on with Jackson State. You already have college athletes that have signed deals. So if you are ahead of this, you're already in the process where you hire these organizations that will put you in a position to make sure that you have a governance structure allowing your students, if you would, to take advantage of this opportunity. If you're not there yet, move judiciously, but move at a speed that allows you to move forward. Because you cannot sit on this because you're losing an opportunity for your institution. And more importantly, in my case, because I favor college athletes, you're losing an opportunity for your college athletes to learn. What better time to learn than in college before you turn professional, either in a sport or outside of the sport, when it becomes real? So you talked about owning their own business, much like myself. What better place would it have been able for you to learn about business than in college, where you were able to make some general mistakes and it wouldn't follow you the rest of your life with belief if they were in reason? So I'll end it again. Get out of the way.
All right, Fuzzy Lee, you not only a former college athlete, you have been and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just going off memory, you're an HR professional, and you've been doing that for several years. So now, not only are these student athletes, have a brand standard for the university and rules and protocols, but if you're now going to sign a marketing deal, you kind of have brand standards with that company. They're going to have certain expectations for how you behave, how you act, things that you post on social media now might not align with this new company that you signed up with. Speaking from both of those perspectives, from someone who now professionally works in HR and someone being a former high-profile student athlete, what do you think those additional levels of pressure and expectations might mean for a young man or a young lady?
Oh, wow. I mean, pretty much what, KENYATTA said is the fact that college is where you need that foundation. That's one of the things that helped me get to where I am today was the conversations that Coach Mac Brown used to have with us. He used to always say, football isn't promised to everyone. You have to have a plan B, and your plan B is your education. To me, I kept a small circle because once you start listening to everyone else, hearing the hype, that's when you start making those mistakes. That's when now, because when I was playing, there was no, Facebook, no IG, none of that. But now these individuals are so busy trying to impress everyone else. They don't truly remember or understand their foundation and how that is going to affect them as they become a true adult. Transition from college to, yes, you have been a spokesperson for this company, how you should carry yourself, things of that nature, because life after football, once you transition to it, you still have to kind of abide by those rules. And that's where so many people drop the ball, is the fact that their circle gets too big. They have their entourage. They have people in their heads all the time. And that's one of the things that, we were exposed to even in the 90s, the fact of they wanted us to stay away from agents because they didn't want you to, be influenced by them. As Chuck said, now he's I'm not gonna say he's in the business currently of guiding these individuals. They've always been in the business of guiding, but it's always the fact of how other individuals perceive it outside of that smaller circle. So even with me being in HR, again, that foundation of rules, regulations, truly understanding what is expected of you from now it will be the university, well, excuse me, not the university, but these companies, you are now an employee of them. But now once you transition into the real world, all that stuff kind of stays intact. That's pretty much what you have to do. You have to walk that fine line. You have to, understand that everything that you post, it can be recovered. And when companies are hiring now, not only are they just looking at your resumes and, yes, you may be, wonderful on paper. You may have a stellar interview, but they can just Google you and they can get that information and they can see everything that you're doing on Facebook. They can actually pay $9.95 or $49.95 and get somewhat of a background even before you accept the job, and they give you a full background check. So, individuals truly now, male and female, have to understand that the things that they currently do is going to follow them. But they just have to make sure that they have the right people in place. Chuck, individuals like you that are really doing it the right way. There's some grimy people out there. I have examples of grimy people, but then there are good ones that are really trying to help this individual. That's my long answer to a short answer is the fact that this stuff is going to follow you regardless. Now I've been in HR for about 20 years. A piece of that talent acquisition, HR business partner, things like that. So I see the good things and the bad things of your foundation transitioning from college athletics even to the real world today.
All right, let's go around the table and we'll give everybody a final thought on name, image, and likeness and where we are as this thing rapidly unfolds heading into the fall football season and volleyball and basketball and track and everyone who has an opportunity to, I guess, cash in here on this opportunity. Chuck, we'll start off with you. Just kind of where you are, your mind space right now, and any thoughts you have.
My thought is really that all student athletes really need to take time to realize and understand that right now is the perfect opportunity for them to build a brand for themselves. A brand that's not only going to be present now, but then will follow them in their life post-college. And so now is a good chance to actually build a brand the right way, and set themselves up for the future, whether it's in sports or outside of sports, because that brand is going to follow you pretty much for the rest of your life. And if you do it right.
Chuck, before you go, man, make sure you give us your contact information, man. Somebody might like what you're saying. Like, hey, I need to connect with Chuck. How can they get in contact with you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is Chuck Stinson, phone number 704-668-5303. You can always find us at TLS Sports. And my email is chuck@tlsagency.net.
Hey, I will say this. Anybody who gives out their phone number online is serious business.
Yeah. There you go. We pride ourselves on being accessible and relatable to everybody.
Hey, that's a big step, man. Don't call me because I'm not answering. Dr. CAVIL, man, what do you want to leave us with? Drop some knowledge on us.
Yeah, the first thing I would say, if you think about it in a corporate setting, this is just deregulation of the industry. So once you understand the deregulation, now, again, the best thing you need to do is go find out the rules. I do like what Chuck said in terms of understanding your brand. I will add this, that you already have a brand. Now the question is, this is an opportunity maybe to rebrand yourself or continue the brand that you have, but understand that you already have a brand. So that brand speaks for you and will continue to speak for you. Now, the challenge that you have, since you already have a brand, you already have a record. And that record can be good, positive, or indifferent. And what you need to understand is you need to start focusing on how you're going to refine that brand as you move forward. And people like Chuck, people like Fuzzy that has been through this before can provide you a framework and a roadmap in regards to how you move forward, including your institution, coaches, those individuals that have showed you that they can be trustworthy. So understand that, including your family in a lot of dispositions. Take all that information in, find out what really works for you, redesign yourself in such a way that you can navigate the space that provides you with a new opportunity. The last thing I will say is that in some ways, this is like the Wild Wild West. So you really need to be open to the marketplace and understand that in such a way. I believe that this provides HBCUs with a new opportunity because of the deregulation. That means that they can find a way to carve out a special space for them to really lift off. And so HBCUs specifically, since we're talking about HBCU Gameday, need to take advantage of the space that has been deregulated and move up in the pecking order of how they can deliver a great opportunity for these college athletes moving forward.
Okay, there'll be many Fuzzy Lees following in your footsteps at various schools across the country. The opportunity that lies in front of them now, what's kind of the thing that sticks out to you the most about where we are right now, Fuzzy?
Well, where we are right now, I was just taking some notes real quick. Not everyone is going to be happy, mainly because not everyone is going to have that exposure. They're not going to be at a level to where they can benefit financially. And I'll even say non-revenue sports. So there's still going to be some unhappy campers, but it is a game changer as it pertains to recruiting. Because now it's going to be the fact of where can I get the most exposure? Where can I, heighten my brand? Where can I, polish my brand? Things of that nature. But again, they're going to be people like, Chuck that can, steer them in that direction, as well as, just the knowledge of what KENYATTA was just dropping about, deregulating and truly understanding that. It's going to level the playing field, but along with leveling that playing field, there's going to be bumps in the road because, as I indicated, this should have been done a long time ago. This should have been in the works a long time ago. This should have been work put behind it a long time ago. Now it's getting ready to blow up, and the NCAA is going to be left holding the bag because they're not prepared for this, and a lot of universities are not prepared for this either.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. It is definitely an exciting and I will call it somewhat nervous energy time. Who will be able to capitalize and be one of those early 49ers during the gold rush, so to speak. It will be interesting to see. All right, let's thank our panel here. Chuck Stinson, he's with TLS Talent Agency. Make sure you get in contact with him if you need his services. We'll put his info on the screen and in the description as well. Dr. KENYATTA CAVIL, you know this guy. You've seen him before. You will see him many times again. Doc, thanks so much for stopping by. And my first on camera with the Cuzzo, Fuzzy Lee. Thank you so much for your contributions, man. And again, look, you entertained a big part of my childhood. We appreciate that. And here's just a little payback bringing you on today. So, guys, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you guys again. Thank you all out there for hanging out with us here at HBCU Game Day.